A large container ship loaded bunkers and stores in Singapore. The navigating officer was among the crew who left the ship. He wasn't replaced. Instead, the third officer was promoted to second officer. A last-minute change of port meant there was little time to prepare the voyage plan. Small-scale charts were used. No parallel indexing was included, and no-go areas were not marked. There was no time for the master to approve the plan. The ship departed eastbound in the early evening. The master took the ship across the westbound traffic lane and into the eastbound lane. The bridge team ignored both VTS and Navtec's warnings of an unmarked wreck in the lane ahead. Shortly after 8 o'clock, the new third officer took charge of the watch. The helmsman and cadet, acting as lookout, were also new arrivals. All were tired and travel-weary. The master returned to write night orders and send some messages. He did not check the ship's position. A little later, as the ship approached the wreck, the VTS asked for a course alteration to starboard and for the master to be informed. The bridge team believed the master was in the radio room and could hear what was going on. But he had gone to his cabin. The third officer did not fully understand what was happening and had insufficient time to fix the ship's position. Disregarding the advice from the VTS, he altered course to port to keep clear of the wreck. 5 minutes later, the ship went aground at full speed. The engine continued running until the master came on the bridge. The ship owners faced hull repairs, engine repairs, and claims from cargo owners. A good voyage plan is the foundation of safe and efficient navigation. It will take into consideration the safety of life at sea and protection of the maritime environment. It will include the information needed by the watch-keeping officer in difficult situations. A voyage plan ensures that the watch-keeping officer is fully aware of the master's and company's requirements. Poor voyage planning will not always result in an incident, but it puts the watch-keeping officer in a very weak position if things start to go wrong. Voyage planning is a requirement under both SOLAS and STCW conventions. This video is going to examine this important task. Voyage planning can be done on either paper charts or on an ECDIS. Although the techniques may be a little different, the principles are the same. We're going to demonstrate these principles by following the procedure for paper charts with additional considerations for planning on ECDIS. An ECDIS often has a planning station because voyage planning should not be done on the primary ECDIS while it is being used for navigation. If this is unavoidable, it should be done when the required route monitoring is at a minimum. Whether the voyage is planned on an ECDIS or paper charts, the plan must cover the entire voyage, from berth to berth, including parts under pilotage. It must be completed well before departure and must be approved by the master. This will all take time, and the navigating officer must allow for this.
Hold on a second. We have just received orders to proceed to Gibraltar.
The first step is to confirm the destination and establish the route that will be taken.
And I want you to just check the charts for that, especially for their corrections.
The most important issue is using charts that are both up to date and of the right scale.
Okay, I'll check the charts and I'll give it a call. Everything is there. Fine.
So the process begins with selecting the charts. The right scale is very important. In confined coastal waters, large-scale charts are essential. If you don't have the charts needed, they must be ordered. Next, examine the charts to check that they are up to date. If not, they must be updated before planning begins. Updating paper charts is dealt with in part 3 of this series.
Got the charts out?
Yeah, I've taken all the charts out and we have all the charts in Gibraltar.
Okay.
The next step is a meeting with the master to confirm the fine details of the route. The master will have his own requirements and will know the charterer's requirements.
We will do the alternate routes from here, one through normal through the TSS to the Gibraltar, and one.
An important question is whether the charterer wants the ship to carry out the voyage quickly or with slow steaming and improved energy efficiency. For long ocean voyages, an important issue is weather routing. The weather must always be taken into consideration. Avoiding storms and storm damage is safer and cheaper and often more efficient in the long run, even if a longer voyage is needed. On the basis of these decisions, ETAs can be calculated. The chief engineer must be informed, and the requirements for bunkers and other supplies can be determined. That's the end of this section. Now look at the workbook. Once the route and required speed are known, the next step is appraisal. This means gathering and taking into account all the relevant information for the voyage. And there's a lot of it. There's information on tides and prevailing currents, requirements for pilotage and specified VTS reporting points. There are all the official publications, including up-to-date port information, lists of lights, and radio aids to navigation. Navtec's warnings and notices to mariners need to be considered, as well as the expected volume and direction of traffic that is likely to be encountered during the voyage. Then there's collating the company's checklist or forms. Don't forget the state of the ship, its draft, dimensions, and manoeuvring characteristics. This may seem obvious, but these limitations are sometimes overlooked. Many ECDISes will have most of this information in the library. It still must be checked to ensure that it is up to date. It's essential to know the voyage planning tools on your ECDIS before you start voyage planning. The workbook includes a more comprehensive list of what is needed. On an ECDIS, the directory of charts loaded will indicate what is available. If the appropriate charts are not available, they must be obtained or licensed. Check that the charts have been updated. Whether on paper or electronic charts, voyage planning requires bringing together and analysing a large amount of information from different sources. Navigating officers need to be thorough and give themselves the time to do this without cutting corners or overloading themselves. The voyage plan provides all watchkeeping officers on the bridge with the voyage track and information they will need for a safe passage. So it's essential that the plan can be read and understood by the entire bridge team. With an ECDIS, once a route has been planned, it remains in the system's memory. So it's worth seeing if a route can be retrieved. It can then be altered to allow for all changes in circumstances. It's often helpful to start with a small scale chart to visualize the entire route. This will help indicate the best places for the waypoints. Using the small scale charts as a basis, the waypoints are put on the large scale charts. Draw in a first draft of the track. In critical areas, the margins of safety should be marked on both sides of the track. How large they should be will depend on the ship's size, the ship's speed, and the area itself. Then mark the no-go areas, land, shoals, wrecks, and so on. Then mark off all the areas where your draft is more than the depth on the chart. The approaches to many ports involve passages where tidal calculations are crucial. Where possible, don't rely on the height of the tide. Let it be a safety margin. This will also make things simpler if the voyage times change. Some companies, certain charterers, and many masters insist on a specific minimum distance from a danger area. In any case, the planned track should always be plotted to clear hazards at a safe distance. A further document, such as a navigator's workbook or a passage plan file, will be essential to record key information about the voyage, such as alter course positions. ECDISes always have a safety contour feature, which is usually set to an appropriate depth and distance off. The crossing of this boundary, either by entering shallow water or by coming too close to a danger area, will be indicated automatically by the ECDIS during planning, as well as when the ship is underway. With an ECDIS, as with paper charts, it's very easy to align the planned track to any leading lights or sectors. If you need to use buoys as marks, be sure to use a safe distance off so the ship doesn't run over them. It's worth using fractional distances such as 2.4 miles off marks to avoid ships using simple distances in their autopilots or planning. Each waypoint needs to contain information essential to the autopilot, such as planned speed, radius of turn, and track limits. The tidal stream must be marked on the chart. In shallow water, allowance may need to be made for squat and heel effect. The ship's speed determines where the ship will be at any time, and so will determine tidal and other factors. The time of arrival in port needs to be planned to fit in with the tides, the pilot services, and the berth availability. To support the track on the chart, items in the notes should include, as a minimum, safe speed, waypoint ETAs, landfalls, manpower requirements, positions for course alteration, positions where changes in machinery status are needed, positions where reports to shore stations are required, minimum under-keel clearances, and plans for reaching safe water in an emergency. That's the end of this section. Now look at the workbook. It's important to specify how the position of the ship should be fixed and how often. This will be based on company regulations and determined by the master. The time between fixes must be so that it's impossible for the ship to get into danger between fixes. Deep sea, GPS or other satellite navigation systems are a useful means of position fixing. Alternative methods should be used when available. In coastal waters, it is essential to use more than one method. Here, the position of the ship is more critical, and fixes must be more frequent. Both the frequency and method of position fixing must be clearly marked on the chart. For this purpose, the chart should be marked with a useful number of visual and radar conspicuous objects. These can be derived from the chart itself, the pilot books, or from personal experience. Avoid putting in too many, keeping in mind the closeness to the land and the speed of the ship. Timing and method of position fixing is equally important in an electronic voyage plan. The mariner's notes, or pilot data file, should include the position of both visible and radar visible objects. An electronic voyage plan will have a reliance on satellite navigation systems, GPS or GLONASS. But in confined waters, an alternative system must be used for checking the position. Checks of the position by radar, visually, or by using leading lights or sectors are crucial inshore, as there's always the risk that satellite navigation systems will become unavailable or unreliable. A means of verifying the position of all alterations of course must be marked on the chart. When deep sea, GPS is normally an efficient method of position fixing. It's good practice to cross-check the results of different GPS equipment. But for much of the voyage, other means must be used to check the position. At night, lights are an important aid to position fixing. Those to be used for position fixing must be clearly indicated by the plan. There is often not the time to look them up while underway. The plan must be berth to berth, even for parts of the voyage under pilotage. The plan should be confirmed and agreed with pilots once they're on board. Where the ship is headed into an area of restricted navigation, such as inside a harbour or narrow channel, the plan should include an abort point. As the ship runs up to this point, the status of the engine room machinery should be checked. In addition, essential arrangements including berth and tug availability must be confirmed with the appropriate authorities. One objective of the voyage plan is to minimise the need to look for information in reference books. If any are needed, these should be placed ready with the appropriate page marked. Whether using an ECDIS or paper charts, always prepare for the unexpected. What would happen if there was an engine or steering failure at the critical moment in the voyage? What information would you want immediately to hand if you were on watch? These resources are essential elements of the plan and must be on the chart or in the accompanying document called the Passage Plan File or Navigator's Notebook. When voyage planning on an ECDIS, this information may be stored as mariner's notes on the chart itself or in a pilot data file as part of the voyage plan. Different systems use different ways to achieve this, but the same information is needed. That's the end of this section. Now look at the workbook. A very powerful method of monitoring the ship's track during a coastal voyage is parallel indexing. This needs to be set up in the voyage plan. Parallel indexing consists of drawing a line on a radar screen parallel to the ship's course, representing the expected track of a fixed radar conspicuous point. Either a true motion or a relative motion radar display may be used. The plotted line will be parallel to the ship's ground track, but offset by a constant distance. This will be the distance the ship needs to keep off the point. This enables a constant check of the ship's track to be kept. Any cross-track tendency, caused by tidal stream for example, will become apparent by the target moving off the parallel line. For watch-keeping officers to be familiar with this technique, they must practice it in conditions of good visibility. Fixes still need to be taken, even when parallel indexing is taking place. In poor visibility, parallel indexing can be vital. Once you're satisfied with the plan, it must be approved by the master, who may be able to suggest improvements based on their experience.
Mark the course. What I need you to do is come a little bit more on this. You see the curve on the TSS is here, so just bring it opposite here. Okay. And then move along the same line.
This approval will be required as part of the ship's safety management system.
You have nicely written everything, all the information is required is there.
Both the master and navigating officer need to allow sufficient time for a thorough examination of the plan.
I will prefer to go from this side of that. So my starboard side is clear if I need to alter.
The objective is to give the watch-keeping officers a plan to follow and the information to enable them to do that easily. Changes of orders and routing for weather at the start and during the voyage may lead to changes in the voyage plan. These need to be approved by the master, whose authority is essential for every part of the voyage plan. All changes need to be brought to the attention of the bridge team. Navigating officers need to be very careful when transferring a voyage plan from one type of system to a second to provide a backup. Officers need to be aware of potential datum differences between different charting systems. That's the end of this section. Now, look at the workbook. The voyage plan must provide a complete berth-to-berth plan for every part of the voyage on charts of the largest scale. The chart should be marked with the track and information including safety margins, clearing bearings, wheel over positions and tidal streams. There will be supplementary information in an accompanying document called a passage plan file, navigator's workbook or mariner's notes. This document will provide a backup store of facts so that if things do go wrong, there will be useful information immediately available. Whether it is planned on paper charts or on an ECDIS, a good voyage plan must provide all the information the watchkeeper needs. All changes must be approved by the master. A good voyage plan is the foundation of a safe and efficient voyage. To refresh and improve your knowledge, see this video again, read the workbook, and watch the other titles in this series.